And welcome into In Depth with Fox Carolina Sports. Hey there, I'm Aaron Cheslock. As we do each week, we catch up with local coaches and athletes and walk their path to the particular point in their careers. And we have a very timely guest this week as the Braves are playing in the World Series. We have our local former Braves player here, Jose Alvarez, former pitcher for Atlanta in the 80s. Jose, thanks for joining us. I know it was kind of short notice, but let's jump right into it. How cool has this been this season to watch the Braves catch fire and get all the way to the biggest series that there is in professional baseball?
It's been a great watch. It's been fun to watch them grow and gel together as a team. You know, they haven't had the best breaks. And speaking of breaks, you know, that's a bad word after last night's game with Charlie Morton. But it's really neat to see the way Brian Snicker and Anthopoulos and all the Braves staff have put this team together, and it truly has been a lot of fun to watch, and particularly July, August, and September. You know,
in full disclosure, we're taping this just before Game 2, so all optimism's at a sky-high level right now. So while this airs tomorrow, we'll have a little clearer picture of how this series is going to shape up. Without question, it is certainly favoring the Braves right now. I want to ask you about Charlie Morton. I don't have this written down, but what an incredible athletic achievement that he, only a couple innings pitched, but boy, were those key innings. And the fact when you fracture your fibula and it's really on your plant leg that you're pitching off of, to get 3 outs, 16 pitches, a couple strikeouts. Can you put into perspective how tough that is to do?
Well, I remember when Schilling pitched for the Red Sox and he had the blood sock. And last night, I thought it was his plant leg, but I believe it's actually his push-off leg.
Okay.
Because he reached down and grabbed his right leg. I thought he had injured his left leg. And what he did is remarkable. I mean, I can't even imagine what it was like to throw, 18 more pitches after he injured it with the line drive. So, quite a remarkable young man, and really shows the tenacity of this team and the way that they really go out there and give it all.
When you look at the acquisitions that the Braves made towards the trade deadline, really 4 key pieces: in Eddie Rosario, Adam Duvall, Jock Peterson, and Jorge Soler. We saw 2 of them on display in Game 1 as Duvall and Soler go deep. But a lot of folks thought that this season could be a wash after Ronald Acuna Jr., who arguably is the best player in baseball right now, goes down for the season. But how much credit do you give this front office and this team for gelling together? Now, the rest of the stars are still there, but those 4 acquisitions have been pivotal throughout this playoff run.
And everybody knows that Rosario was hurt when he came over. The guy every one of them has impressed me, and every one of them has contributed very well. What's remarkable to me is the way that they've done it in such cohesiveness, and they've done it in addition to what Albies is already doing. And of course, man, you look at the year Riley's had, phenomenal. The bounce back by Freddie Freeman after his start. So, it was really good. I mean, I'm going to ruffle a lot of feathers here, but hey, I'll give you honesty. I really think that they're a better team. Now, I'm going to quantify this. They're a better team right now than they were with Acuna. Here's the caveat on that. If Ronald Acuna played with the same tenacity and hustle and aggressiveness and everything that an Albies and a Freddie Freeman gives, they'd be much better. But, he showed that early in his career. He was lackadaisical on running a few balls out, which I believe cost him getting into the series last year. So I think that if he matures, and then you bring, a couple of these guys back, the Braves could be really dynamic for quite a while. But it all is going to come down to pitching and defense in a series now. If the Braves just play 500 for the rest of the series, they're going to be world champions. So it's been, kudos to the staff and the front office, and to my friend Brian Snicker, who was my minor league catcher. We were teammates in 1979 and 80, and I saw when he made that transition into coaching and the way that he's been up and down and really has done whatever they've asked him to do for 45 years. I'm just so happy. My wife, Michelle, and I are just extremely happy for him and Ronnie, his wife, and Troy, their son, the hitting coach for the Astros. So this is really just a very unique World Series, and I think one that fans, particularly in this area of the upstate of South Carolina and Georgia, people are really crazy about.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about the mental hurdles of this team. We'll get to what Atlanta sports in general have been through and the Braves franchise in particular. But you think about the mental hurdle of knowing after the way last year played out. For those unfamiliar, the Braves with a 3-1 lead in the National League Championship Series, only to see it slip away to the Dodgers. Same exact scenario this season, where the Braves go up early in the series, and then all of a sudden, Cody Bellinger hits a 2 or 3 run homer. And all of a sudden, the Dodgers came back to life, and you're thinking, oh no, here we go again. Atlanta fans are conditioned at this point to say, oh no, here we go again. The mental hurdle that they cleared in closing out in Game 6, not leaving it up for chance, just saying, look, different ball club, different year. The percentages are going to play out this year. How big is that for a team? Just to make sure that, whatever the biggest hurdle you could throw at us, and you'd have to imagine it's trying to close out a series against the Dodgers in the exact same scenario, that you overcome that and the confidence boost I'd have to imagine it gives you.
Well, you look at what Matzik did and Mentor, and you look at, just the way that pitching staff has gelled together in that bullpen, it's been phenomenal. Yeah, and a lot of people have blown up Luke Jackson. I said this the other day, and I'm not going to take anything away from Kranitz or the pitching coach, but I think a lot of Luke Jackson's problems are, just a few mechanical things which lead into some of the mental things. But he's got terrific stuff. John Smoltz has told me he's got electric stuff. And John Smoltz used to pitch, not quite like that, but he was a little bit all over the place. And then all of a sudden he got command of his fastball. And when he got command of his fastball, he started getting command of his slider. And then when he learned to mix in that split finger, he was devastating both as a starter and out of the bullpen. And I think that's what Luke has to look forward to, but he's going to have to make some mechanical adjustments. What they did in Game 6 against the Dodgers, now granted, they didn't have Kershaw, and they had a couple of other injuries with Justin Turner going down, but it wasn't quite the same Dodger team that it was in 2020. However, it was still a very good team. And the Braves just said, hey, there's going to be no question mark about this. And they really took care of business from start to finish.
Is that something that you needed to see as, a former player still following the franchise, that you needed to see to know that they were ready for this kind of a stage?
Yeah. When I saw that, Aaron, and I told my wife, I said, I wonder how they're going to bounce back from this. I saw Luke in the dugout, he had his hands down, and I saw guys go by and try to pick him up. But, this game is a tough game. And that's the beauty of this game, is that you can bounce back the next night. Unfortunately, with the Braves, in a run of 14 straight division titles, with Bobby Cox at the helm, it was a little bit different, because people don't understand how difficult it is to win a short series. And with the exception of the Braves, Smoltz, and Maddox era, where they had those three pitchers that dominated, it's tough. And any team that wins a World Series, you can look back and sometime during the season, they probably lost 3 out of 5 games. Unfortunately for the Braves, it always happened, in pivotal times. But this team's different. You saw a lot of comeback wins. You saw a lot of 2-out base hits. Austin Riley, I think his average is well over 300 with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. That says a lot about teams that and players that have that makeup that say, I'm not going to give up even though you get 2 strikes. And they're the toughest guys to pitch against. When, there's some guys, once they get 2 strikes, you've got them. You got them right where you want them. But this Braves team, they fight with 2 strikes, and they fight every pitch. And Soler, I'm telling you, this guy may have, him and Freddie Freeman are very disciplined hitters from each other side of the plate. I'm very impressed. Soler, he'll lead off tonight. No, I'm sorry. I think Rosario goes back into the leadoff spot tonight. But I like both of these guys. I think they've got a stacked lineup. I think the genius now for Anthopoulos is, how do I keep these guys together? Because it's going to cost quite a bit of money, and they still haven't signed Freddie Freeman. And I know the Lynx armored cars or whatever, they're lining up for this contract.
Yeah, regardless of what happens in this series, the Braves are going to want to keep Freddie Freeman, or else Atlanta fans might burn the city down. It's he's one of the biggest stars in baseball, proving it night in, night out. Rosario looking like the guy that was tearing up the league with Minnesota a few years back. And Jorge Soler, when he's on, man, that is a big son of a gun standing out there. And I mean,
I could not believe. How about last night? In the history of Major League Baseball, there has never been a leadoff home run in a World Series. When they threw that stat up there, I
couldn't believe it.
Okay, are you serious? But wow. So there was a lot. And then in the history of Major League Baseball, no team has scored in the first, second, and third inning. So that's a lot of baseball.
Yeah.
As the old saying goes, just keep watching there. You'll see things you've never seen before.
And I do think that, it really does lend a level of confidence when, the Braves haven't been on this stage in more than 2 decades. And then to step up there and just continue being red hot as they have been this entire postseason, they feel like they're playing with absolutely no pressure. We'll see if that continues in game 2. Obviously, folks that are watching this on Thursday are laughing at us right now if they ended up dropping it. But, regardless of what happens, I think even splitting 1-1, coming back to Atlanta with 3 shots, that's a pretty good position to be in. We'll get to your career in a second here, but you played in some big games. You're, of course, part of that 82 team that made a run to the National League Championship Series. I'm curious, just in general, the game of baseball, what is the biggest difference between a big-time game where everything's on the line and your normal run-of-the-mill May, June game where, it's you're looking at a doubleheader a week from then, trying to figure out when you can get a day off here or there, as best as you can to encapsulate that. Because we watch it at home, and if you, at least on my couch, I can feel the tension, pitch by pitch. Every time a pitcher's waving off a sign, it feels like this could be the biggest moment of the season. What is it like when you're actually in the dugout on the field?
Well, the biggest games that I ever played in I played in the Caribbean World Series and played with the Alomar brothers. It's the best winter ball team from Puerto Rico, Venezuela, the Dominican Republic, and Mexico. And I did that in '93, and that was very exciting. Nothing in comparison to a Major League World Series. But I did get to play, for the Braves when we won the West in 1982. I was left off the playoff roster, so that kind of stings a little bit. But, we played – I played in International League championships. In fact, my first time really to come to Greenville, South Carolina came through. I played for the Greenwood Braves back in 1978, and we went up to Shelby, and we won the Carolina League championship there. There's probably like 4,000 people in the stands. But here's what happens, and I've been around players and coaches, and Smoltzy has shared quite a bit of insight with me. Everything is magnified exponentially in the major leagues when it comes to the playoffs and the World Series. Every pitch, as you mentioned, a walk is a rally, which brings me to my next point. Drives me crazy. Why guys won't go the other way, bunt more, because a rally started with the runner on base. And this shift, the way you beat the shift is you bunt. You bunt a few times. I think of guys like Brett Butler, he'd have been batting 600, if he had played in the way that these guys are pulling the shift. And they're going to have to soften the shift out because, especially when you get 2 strikes, guys are just choking up, and now they're starting. Bellinger did it the other day. In fact, before he hit that home run, he had already gone the opposite field. And then you look at the way that he hit the home run. He got the pitch up. He shortened it up, and he just got on top of that ball, and really that's what it's going to take. So everything's magnified. As you mentioned, the Braves just had that one era with Swanson last night, or I should say on Monday night, or Tuesday night. So I don't even know what day of the week it is now, or Wednesday. So I would just say that these guys know the pressure. The big time players, they're able to put that pressure aside. Their heartbeat is a little slower. They're able to focus on the job at hand. It's still, 60 feet, 6 inches as a pitcher. You're still focusing on hitting the mitt. Your job doesn't change. As a hitter, it's about taking a quality swing and a quality pitch. The game, dictates a lot of it to the way the managers have to call it. But pitchers are, shorter leases. They don't get to extend the way that they used to. And managers are now having to manage by, as Rick Honeycutt, former pitching coach of the Dodgers, just told me last Thursday at Phil Necro's Memorial Golf Tournament. He says everything now is dictated by analytics. And I'm thankful that the Braves let Brian Snicker do some things outside the analytics. There's some things that, that they're doing, but I will tell you that they're smart in letting him make some decisions. I don't know that I would have pulled over in Atlanta where was it? In LA, when they pinch hit. I don't know that I'd have pulled the starting pitcher, but he did. And as a result, big hit comes up, and next thing you know, the Braves are scoring a bunch of runs. So it's a different kind of era. I'm not one of those guys the game was so much better when I played. But it was different. And I felt like guys fought a little bit harder with 2 strikes. And I'm seeing that now with some of the Braves players.
Yeah, you do seem to get a little bit more old school baseball when things are on the line, which makes you think, why are we doing that all the time? I mean, There is something to be said for the feel of your team, the feel of the game, and game flow in general. Let's talk about where your career started. You're born in Tampa, you played at Louisiana Lafayette. Your first pro season was in 1978. Back then, I'm not sure college baseball was as big of a deal as it is now, but what was the biggest difference in your experience from the college game to your first season as a pro?
Well, it's interesting. I got drafted in 78. I was an 8th round pick by the Braves. Bob Horner was the number 1 pick overall. The Braves had the number 1 pick in the draft. Steve Bedrosian was number 3. And we signed together, and I actually went to Atlanta with all the rookies and worked out for about 3 days. And they actually called me in early one day to throw batting practice to Bob Horner. And I had a good curveball, and they were going to play the Pirates that night, and Bert Blyleven was going to pitch, and he had a great curveball. So I went out there and I pitched game situations against Bob Horner. And I was kind of proud because he didn't hit a home run off me. He hit a lot of line drives, but he had trouble with my curveball. Then that night he hits a home run on a curveball from Bert Blyleven. So I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, Louisiana, I learned a lot in college as a raging Cajun. I got stronger. I learned how to use my fastball. I went and played a summer league right before the draft in Clarinda, Iowa, a town of 5,000. And I still have part of my heart is there because there's some great people and great friends. My son actually he went out there and played, and then he married a girl from Clarinda. And so that coach out there, Merle Eberly, he coached Ozzie Smith. He coached a lot of guys that went on to play in the major leagues. I think about 25 of us have. And he came up to me and he told me, he says, you're going to play in the big leagues. He says, but I want you to learn how to use your fastball. Your curveball is good. So he was kind of like a father figure to me. That I didn't have a father growing up. And so that was a real step in place for me to launch into professional baseball. And then the Braves gave me an opportunity in 81. I got called up just after the AAA season was ended in 1981. Braves were bad that year. And then in 82, as I said, and you mentioned, we won the West. But 83, 4, 5, and 6, and 7, those 5 years, I was back in the minor leagues. In fact, that's why we live in Greenville right now, is we came through Greenville and played for the G Braves in 86 and 87, met wonderful people. And, we've got 35 years here in the upstate. We love it. Just a great place. And I'm enjoying doing what I'm doing with FCA Golf Ministry here in Greenville, South Carolina. And so, yeah, I've seen, this town grow. I've seen baseball change, but, my career, I tell people that, when I played, I threw the ball as hard as anybody in the history of the game. Now, I didn't get there as quick, but I threw it as hard as I could. And so, I learned a lot about how this game can improve you as a person. I tell people I miss the 3 C's when it comes to baseball. I miss the compensation. It was nice getting paid. I miss the competition. There's a thrill about playing and entering a game as a reliever with runners on and trying to make a pitch and get a ground ball double play. I enjoyed starting and going, pitching, deep into the game. But I miss the camaraderie. And that's something that golf is really, I've got a lot of friends that I play golf with and a lot of former players that we play golf with. But the camaraderie that game brings is what you miss. You spend so much time in the locker room. It's like today's game. some of those players got to the game today in Houston. They probably got there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon for an 8 o'clock game. And now the locker rooms are a little bit different. When I played in the minor leagues, we stayed in some cheesy hotels. In fact, some of the hotels were so bad they would steal our towels. That's bad. But we had a lot of great road trips, and now the major leagues, we see things at their locker room. They got chefs for them. They have massage chairs. I mean, it's pretty intense right now. But they're making a lot of money, and they got to take care of these athletes. But I enjoyed my career. I'm thankful. I got more out of it than I deserved, and I feel like I left everything out there and gave it my very best.
You're telling me they didn't have massage chairs for the Greenville Braves in the late 70s?
Not quite. It was 86 and then a month of 87 that I was here. Yeah, no, not quite. Yeah, your massage was.
They didn't have them in the 80s either.
You got up against the wall and you kind of just rubbed your back like that.
Well, you had a couple of years in the bigs, then you had a good chunk of the 80s in the minors. But I do want to ask you about 81. Your MLB debut, a couple of strikeouts in 2 innings. Well, do you remember that feeling? Does that stay with you forever, the first time you toe the rubber in the bigs?
Aaron, it's interesting because I can remember my very first game almost pitch by pitch. And I can remember my first big league win, my first big league save, my first big league at bat. But I don't remember much after that. But my first big league debut, Phil Niekro started the game against the San Francisco Giants at Fulton County. And then Bob Walk pitched, I think Bedrosian pitched, and then I came in to pitch the 8th and the 9th. And top of the 8th, I had 3 guys. It was Johnny LeMaster, shortstop, Greg Minton, the pitcher, and then Joe Morgan, who recently passed away, Hall of Famer. Most of his success was with the Big Red Machine in the 70s, the Cincinnati Reds, a terrific guy. And so I grew up in Tampa, Florida, watching the Cincinnati Reds spring train. And so the first batter I got out, ground ball, and what a relief. I mean, the exhilaration, knowing that, you worked so hard. Everybody said you're too small, you're too short, you don't throw hard enough. And then I get a major league out. So once I got that first out, it's like, if I never got another out, I've already proved, thousands of people wrong. The next batter was Greg Minton, and I struck him out, but I really don't count that as a strikeout because he was a pitcher, but it's in the record book. The next batter was Joe Morgan, and Eric Gregg, big umpire. I think he was kind of testing me because I threw the first pitch right there, and he called it a ball. I fell behind 3-0. Then I threw a fastball for a strike, a slider for a strike, and then I started my curveball off at about Joe's eyes. And when he swung over the top of it, strike 3, I still get excited remembering that. Struck him out, man. I ran off the field. It was exhilarating. And then I got 3 up and 3 down in the 9th inning. We didn't win the ball game, but it was pretty exciting. Probably
that would have been 2, 3, 4 in the 9th, right?
It was. And it was Enos Cabell. It was Clark, and it was Darrell Evans. Darrell Evans hit the last pop up to left field. But the best. So 82, I pitched in about 4 games, had 3 really good games, had 1 game that was bad. But I tell people we won the West by 1 game in 1982. It almost looked like we were going to have to go up to LA and play the Dodgers in a 1-game playoff. And so while we're down in San Diego playing the Padres, the Dodgers are up in San Francisco playing the Giants. If the Dodgers win and we lose, we have to go to LA and face Don Sutton, another Hall of Famer that just passed away, and in a 1-game playoff, and it's not going to look good for the Braves. Well, in the bottom of the 8th inning, Joe Morgan hits a home run off of Terry Forster to put the Giants on top, and then Greg Minton, who was my first major league strikeout, gets them out in the top of the 9th, and we win by 1. And I tell people, I was like, yeah, if I wouldn't have came in and shut the fire down off of the Pirates back in May, and we came back and won that game, no chance telling what'll happen. But I will tell you this, the most exciting game coming back and pitching was after I spent 5 long years in the minor leagues. And I got a wonderful wife. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary. And Michelle and I had been up and down, Richmond, Greenville. We had been with 6 other clubs or 5 other clubs. We've been traded, released, and it didn't look like I was ever going to get called back up. And John Smoltz and I were in Richmond in 1988, and my father-in-law had come up to visit us in Richmond, and we all went out golfing that morning. And on the way, we're reading a newspaper, which, people don't know what a newspaper is anymore, but we were reading it, and John said, hey, it looks like they're going to have to call a pitcher up to the big leagues. Somebody got injured. And he says, do you think they'll call you up? And I was like, no, I don't think so. I'm 32 at the time. He goes, do you think they'll call me up? And I said, no, I don't think they'll call you up because they want you to get about 12 starts in the minor leagues. You just need more experience. And he goes, who do you think they'll call up? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, well, you're throwing the ball better than anybody. And I was like, I know, but I'm 32. We get out of the golf course, and on the 4th hole, and Smoltz had never beat me at all because he wasn't a good golfer when he started out. Through 4 holes, I'm on the 4th hole. I'm 3 down. He's got a 5-foot birdie putt. I got about a 10-foot par putt. And this truck comes driving on the cart path. And he's like, what's going on there? And I said, I don't know. And a guy gets out of his truck and goes, he was a maintenance guy. He goes, and it's real early in the morning. We teed off like at 7:30. He said, is one of you guys named Jose Alvarez? And before I could even say, yeah, that's me, Smoltz throws his putter down and he goes, I can't believe it. The first time I'm ever going to beat you and you get called to the big leagues. And I did. So I went in, called my wife, and she says, hey, we just got called up. You got to call. Jim Beecham was my manager in AAA and went on to be a great bench coach for Bobby Cox. And I got to the big leagues and I pitched. I didn't pitch that day. It was May 9th. But on May 10th, I came in and relieved Tom Glavine, who couldn't get out of the 2nd inning. And I got an out in the top of the 2nd. When I came in the dugout, Chuck Tanner said, hey, I need some innings out of you. Our bullpen is dead. And I was like, Chuck, I'll pitch as long as you want, And I ended up pitching 5 1/3 innings of 1-hit ball. But as a pitcher, what's more exciting than pitching is getting an at-bat. And I got a base hit in my first 2 major league at-bats. So it was really kind of cool. I got a Poulan chainsaw sitting in my locker after the game was over. And I was like, what's this? And our clubhouse manager goes, hey, you were named player of the game. And I go, but we lost. They go, no, the radio broadcast team for the Expos gave you this. You're the player of the game. They're just so impressed with your story. And I was like, I don't even have a house. I've never had a chainsaw. I started thinking, hey, how much money could I get for this chainsaw? I'm on a rookie salary here. We don't even have a house. So we bought a house that off season, and about this time when the World Series was going on, I decided I'm going to get my yard looking really good because my family's coming up from Tampa and Jacksonville for Thanksgiving. So I mix the gas and the oil, and I start this, and man, there's some power in a chainsaw. I'm trimming trees. I had a long sleeve shirt on. I put batting gloves on. I had goggles. Well, I made the mistake of climbing up on this one little tree. And of course I was right-handed, and I'm holding this tree with my left hand, and I'm reaching out and I'm shaving this one limb off, and the chainsaw kicks back, hits my left hand, and my glove explodes. And it happens just as my wife walks out of the garage, and she looks at it and she goes, oh my gosh, did you just cut your hand? And my glove's in shreds. I'm pulling the fragments off, and I see blood pouring out of my hand. I don't know if I cut my hand or what. And I had a steel ring on, and it had hit my ring, and it choked out the thing. And I'm just going, please bend, please bend. And I bent my finger, and I was like, oh, and so I pulled the ring right over the spot, and she yells back up, is it your left hand or your right hand? I said, it's my left hand. She goes, I'm going to the store. I'll see you later. So I learned I'm not real good with chainsaws. I'm trying to stay in my own lane.
It's such an incredible story. You mentioned 88. It was your best season in the big, sub-3 ERA, 81 Ks and 102 innings pitched. Another great season in 89. Smoltz and Glavine, as you mentioned, were part of that 89 team. So it was just before the Braves would go on a run of 14 years of winning the NL East. Of course, the World Series championship in 1995. Could you sense it even then that was the start of something special?
Yeah, Bobby Cox deserves so much credit, and our prayers are with Bobby. He had a stroke, and he's hanging in there, but I'm glad he's been able to see his protege, Snicker, have the success. But Bobby put this team together. They had a great scouting department. Clete Boyer, former great Yankee third baseman, said this to me when I got drafted. I asked him, I said, Clete, why can't the Braves win? Because they were cellar dwellers for such a long time. And he said, well, Ted Turner asked me that, and I told him that you can't make chicken salad out of chicken crap. He didn't say that last word, but you get the message. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, you got to have some talent. You got to have some talent. And he says, they're not getting good talent and they're not developing it. He says, but this draft, and he looks, and he goes, this draft looks pretty good. And we had, I think, about 5 guys off that draft made to the big leagues: Bob Horner, Rick Behena, Steve Bedrosian, Matt Sinatra, myself. And then, of course, the next few years, they started getting some really good players. And then all of a sudden you get Dave Justice, Ronnie Gant, Jeff Blauser, Tom Glavine. You start to see homegrown athletes come up, and they put a lot of emphasis on development in the minor leagues. And so in the 88 season, Smoltz and Glavine both came up that year. Glavine was like 4-14, I think, one year in that year. But you could just see he had the talent. He just had to learn how to pitch. And then once he developed that changeup, and as I mentioned about Smoltz commanding his fastball, that's what Glavine started doing. And then the defense. That year of 88, I was 5-6 that year. But 13 different times during that year, I went into the last inning where we had last at bat, and we either had a tie ball game, or we had a chance to win the ball game with the 2-run. And 13 times we left the tying or winning runs on base. So if we would have just gotten a base hit, I was the pitcher of record. I could have had 5 or 6 more wins that year. So that year showed me that they're starting to get serious. 89, there was a little more progress, and I saw some maturity. 90, they were still, in the bottom of the cellar then, but you just started seeing them start to get a little bit of money. And then 91, when they went from, worst to first, you knew it was a time now where there's going to be a good run. And they kept those teams together. And Bobby, as I mentioned earlier, Bobby was a great guy to play for. There's a lot of Bobby Cox and Brian Snicker, and you could just tell once they got the big 3 going, with Smoltz, Glavine, Maddox, and then you threw a Steve Avery in there that had a few good years, and Denny Nagel, and Javi Lopez. What a great player he was. So you look at a way that they gelled, and then you got your Otis Nixon and Deion Sanders and guys making phenomenal catches. The defense and speed and the pitching. It carried them for a long time.
Yeah, it was sustained success, but again, I think that this Braves team just feels a little different.
You're right.
They feel like they have all the momentum going on their side. Again, we're getting set to wrap up here because we're both going to go watch game 2. But I do want to ask you, you've been around Atlanta sports for a while. You played for the Braves for a good part of an entire decade. So in your opinion, if they were to get this World Series, and the first time that they've gotten it since 1995, so many years of being really good, but just not good enough, what would it mean for this fan base and to yourself, who's now a part of that as well?
Well, as an alumni, you always pull for teams that mean a lot to you, and I spent 10 of my 16 seasons with the Atlanta Braves and parts of 5 years in the big leagues, 4 with Atlanta. And Atlanta, they have my heart. I'd like to see them win. And as I mentioned, more so for some of the guys that are there, I think it'll be great. They've done a tremendous job. Everybody, from Derek Schiller and Mike Plant and all the guys with the Braves that are, really, the whole Truist Park and the Battery. And it was just genius of them, just tremendously smart. And they're going to be able to contend for a long time. They've got the resources now to do that. And I think that Atlanta's got a good chance to be really good for quite a few years.
I know that you're involved with the FCA in Greenville. And before I let you go, I do want to give people an idea of what what you're doing right now. Jose Alvarez is a very big part of the upstate community, certainly for us in the sports world, but really throughout the community in its entirety. So take a couple minutes to let folks know what you guys are doing and if they're interested, how they can get involved.
Well, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate that. Yeah, FCA in the upstate is phenomenal. And I've been fortunate to be on staff with FCA for 15 years. And we do 2 big golf tournaments, one during the week of the BMW Charity Pro-Am here in Greenville. My event's called the Shootout with the Pros. That's in the week of the BMW Charity Pro-Am. And then November 12th, we have our big FCA Rivalry Cup, where it's always been Clemson versus South Carolina. This year we added Citadel and Wofford. Where the Citadel and Wofford players are, I don't know, but we're looking for fans from Citadel and Wofford to round out the field. We've got a good field. It'll be played at Brights Creek on November 12th with a wonderful pairings party at Top Golf on the 11th. And it's a way to support FCA golf. We're doing a lot of great things in the upstate. In fact, I was hoping to see you guys this afternoon out at Legacy Pines, where we did our FCA 9-hole scramble series that concluded tonight. But FCA in schools is, you see what's happening around in our country. You saw what happened at Hillcrest High School Friday night, and a young man loses his life needlessly. And, our kids being able to take the gospel into the schools and have these kids that are leaders that are really standing up for their faith. I think it's our only hope for our country and our community. And so I'm very fortunate to be able to work here with the staff. And so if there's folks that want to know more about it, they can go to FCA Golf. It's FCA Golf Greenville, or just FCA.org, FCA.org, and you can look up and find our links. And if you want to get in touch with me, my number's all out there, and I'm Jose Alvarez 2nd on Twitter, and you can find me on Facebook. So I'll reach back out to you. But thanks for your time, Aaron. Now let's go watch the Braves take on the Astros.
That's not your job. This is my job. He is Jose Alvarez, the former Braves pitcher, about to maybe go watch his former team lock down a World Series. They can win Game 2, a 2-0 lead, heading back to Atlanta this weekend. Boy, what a great position that would put them in. Jose, we thank you so much for the time. Thank you for the insight and, a peek behind the curtain of some of the fun things that you guys all got to do there in the 80s in the big leagues. It's a joy for baseball fans like me to be able to really take a look behind the curtain, as I mentioned, to see all the shenanigans that you guys were doing that we knew you were doing, but the cameras weren't quite rolling there. So we appreciate the time, and let's see if the Braves can bring it home.
Thanks, Aaron.
That's going to do it for this week's edition of In Depth with Fox Carolina Sports. Thanks to Jose Alvarez, and thank you to you for tuning in. We'll see you back here with another great episode next week. Have a great night, everybody.